Hi guys, for today's lesson we're going to be dealing with an introduction to rates. So what do I mean by a rate? So a rate is a comparison of two quantities measured in different units. So an example of a rate is for example speed. So speed is a type of rate. So for example the speed of a vehicle is a type of rate. It compares the distance travelled with the length of time taken. So the two sort of quantities that are compared with the speed is going to be distance and time, and they're measured in this case in kilometers and hours. So that's how this sort of rate works. Now, with this rate, you'll notice there's like a slash between these two amounts, these two quantities. That means per. So this is saying 80 kilometers per 2 hours. And that's an example of speed because it's measuring distance and time. When you think about how fast a car is going, we're usually dealing with like kilometers per hour. And that's pretty much what we've got here. Now, a simplified rate is the next thing you need to know about. So a simplified rate is an equivalent rate, which has just one of the second quantity. So we're dealing with a rate which has the same value but just has different numbers. And there's a bit of a rule when you're trying to figure out what a simplified rate is. You simplify a rate by dividing by the second quantity. So here we've got 80 kilometers per 2 hours. We want to make a simplified rate, and that means that our second quantity just has one of its amount. So instead of 2 hours, we only want 1 hour. So the way to do that is to take 2 hours and divide it by this same number, 2. Because 2 divided by 2 gives you your 1 hour, which you want. What you do to one side, you have to do the other. So 80 kilometers divided by 2 gives you 40 kilometers. So 80 kilometers per 2 hours is equivalent to 40 kilometers per hour. And that is a simplified rate because we've just got 1 hour. Okay, moving on, let's just do some example questions. So express each situation as a simplified rate. So we've got 45 runs scored for 10 overs. So the idea is we want to change that to a rate form where we've got a slash between these two quantities. And then instead of 10 overs, we want a simplified version with just 1 over at the end. So we're going to divide both sides by this second quantity 10, because 10 divided by 10 gives us that 1. And 45 divided by 10 equals 4.5 runs. So 4.5 runs per over is the simplified rate that we see here. 15 lollies for 85 cents to 2 decimal places. I want this rate. Okay, the idea is we set up our first rate. 15 lollies cost us 85 cents. So 15 lollies per 85 cents there. We got to divide by this second amount. So we've got 0.85. That's what we're going to divide both sides by. 15 divided by 0.85 gives us 17.65 to 2 decimal places. And 0.85 divided by itself is going to equal 1. So that leaves us with just $1. So you're going to get 17.65 lollies for $1 or per $1. Here's another question. So Tom was 120 centimeters tall when he turned 10 years old. So that's how tall he is at 10 years. He was 185 centimeters tall when he turned 20 years old. What was Tom's average rate of growth? So you've got to think to yourself here, he's going from this height to this height, and that's taking him 10 years because he's going from 10 years to 20 years. So the height increase, he went from 120 up to 185, so he increased by 65. The time elapsed is going to be the difference between 10 and 20 years. That's 10 years. So therefore, he went up 65 centimeters in 10 years. So that's the rate that we need to deal with. 65 centimeters per 10 years. We want to simplify this rate. Instead of 10 years, we want just 1 year. So we're going to divide by 10. 65 divided by 10 is 6.5 centimeters per year. Every single year, he roughly went up about 6.5 centimeters. That's just on average. It's not saying that he went up by that every single year. It could have changed year by year, but on average, he went up about that, 6.5. Hope this helps with the questions. Good luck.